and how you allow others to treat you. So often, we're conditioned to believe that we have to make ourselves indispensable, that we have to jump through hoops or bend over backward to gain someone's attention. But that mindset only leads to exhaustion and frustration. You may start to feel like you're chasing after something that's just out of your reach, constantly striving to keep someone's attention, constantly wondering why they aren't giving you the time of day. But think about this. If you're constantly chasing, then you're not giving them the space to come to you, to see your value on their own terms. True connection, the kind that's built on mutual respect and shared interest, doesn't require you to beg or make excuses. It doesn't require you to send message after message trying to get a response. When someone's genuinely interested, they'll make it known. They'll reach out, initiate conversations, and invest time and effort into getting to know you. It's that simple. The problem arises when we don't recognize our own worth. When someone doesn't reply, the immediate instinct is often to think, what did I do wrong? Why am I not enough? But here's the thing. Silence doesn't equal rejection of you as a person. It may simply be that the other person isn't as invested as you are. Or maybe they're going through something in their own life and are not prioritizing communication in that moment. And that's okay. What's not okay is how you let this silence affect your sense of self. It's crucial to remember that you are not defined by their response or lack of response. Your worth is intrinsic. It's something that no one else can give you or take away. And when you truly understand that, when you genuinely internalize that knowledge, you stop needing anyone else's approval. You stop giving people the power to determine your value based on how quickly they reply to you or whether they reply at all. You become unshakable in your sense of self-worth. So when someone doesn't respond, instead of wondering whether you should beg or plead for attention, you simply carry on with your life. You continue focusing on your goals, your passions, and the things that matter to you. The world doesn't stop spinning just because someone hasn't replied to your message. Your life doesn't stop just because you're waiting for someone to decide if they're going to make you a priority. What happens when you stop begging for replies? You reclaim your power. You take control of your own narrative and stop letting others define your emotional landscape. If someone wants to engage with you, they'll make the effort. If they don't, that's fine too, but you don't need to beg for someone to see your worth, to see your value. It's right there all along. Instead of focusing on why they haven't replied, shift your energy to the things that truly matter. You don't need anyone to complete you or validate your existence. You're already whole, and this understanding is empowering because it allows you to set boundaries that serve your emotional well-being. When you stop seeking validation from others, you stop letting their behavior dictate your emotions. You start living life on your terms, without seeking constant affirmation from someone else. So, what should you do when you're in this situation? Instead of chasing a reply, shift the focus back to yourself. Take this moment to reflect on what you need from a relationship, from your friendships, or from your romantic interests. Ask yourself, do I want to be in a relationship where I constantly have to prove my worth, where I'm left wondering if I've said or done something wrong? Or do I want a connection where both parties are equally invested, where there's mutual respect and effort? When someone doesn't reply, it's a moment of clarity, a moment where you can decide what you truly deserve. It's not a moment to shrink, to beg for someone's attention. It's an opportunity to stand tall and set the standard for how you want to be treated. Because the reality is, you don't have to beg anyone for a response. If someone cares, they will show it. If they don't, it's not a reflection of who you are. It's simply a mismatch in priorities. So next time you find yourself in this position, remember, don't beg for a reply. Instead, focus on what you want in your relationships and recognize that you deserve the same level of respect and effort that you give. And if someone doesn't reply, understand that it says more about them than it does about you. You are enough, and that's all that matters. When someone doesn't reply to your messages, it's easy to feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, desperately waiting for someone to reach out and pull you back into safety. But here's the truth. You're not standing on that edge at all. You are, in fact, the one who holds the power to step away from it and walk confidently forward. The moment we start to believe that someone else's lack of response diminishes our worth, we've handed over our personal power. You cannot be your best self if you are constantly waiting for someone else to affirm your existence. We all know that feeling. You send a text, a call, or maybe you leave a message on social media, hoping that someone will respond. You've invested in the conversation, maybe even opened up a little, but when the silence hits, it feels like everything you gave to that moment was a waste. And the worst part, you start questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Did I scare them away? What if they just don't like me? The problem with these questions is that they focus entirely on the other person's actions, as if you have no control over the situation. The truth is, your worth isn't defined by anyone's response. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on whether or not someone texts you back or calls you when they said they would. And yet, it's so easy to slip into this pattern of self-doubt. It's like we're taught that the more we invest emotionally in someone, the more we should expect them to invest back. But that's where we go wrong. Let's pause for a moment and ask, why are we letting someone else's actions, someone who may not even be fully aware of the impact they have on us, dictate our mood, our day, or worse, our sense of self-worth? The reality is that the moment we start questioning ourselves because of someone else's lack of response, we're falling into a trap. We're telling ourselves that we need someone's attention to feel validated. But here's the key. No one has the right to dictate how you feel about yourself. The fact is, when we start to beg for attention, we enter into a mindset of desperation, and desperation is never attractive. It makes us look like we're chasing after someone's approval, instead of standing confidently in our own value. Imagine a relationship, whether it's a romantic one, a friendship, or even a professional connection, where you're constantly the one reaching out, constantly the one doing the emotional labor. It doesn't take long before you realize you're doing all the heavy lifting and they're just along for the ride. And that's not a healthy dynamic. So what does it look like when you reclaim your power in these situations? It starts with acknowledging your own worth and understanding that you don't need to beg for anyone's attention. You don't need anyone else's validation to feel good about who you are. When someone doesn't reply to your message, it's an opportunity for you to remind yourself that your self-worth doesn't hinge on their reaction. You are whole and you are complete, regardless of what they choose to do. The truth is, there's a tremendous amount of power in silence. We often think of silence as awkward, uncomfortable, or negative. But in reality, silence is one of the most powerful tools we have. The moment you stop reaching out, the moment you stop chasing, you create space. You give yourself the freedom to step back, to focus on yourself, and to live your life without waiting for someone else to dictate your next move. And guess what? That's when people start to notice. Think about it. When someone doesn't reply to you right away, they may believe they can take their time. They think they can leave you on red and get away with it. But the moment you stop chasing and start prioritizing your own life, your own growth, something changes. It's not that you're playing games. It's that you're respecting your own boundaries. You're telling them, without saying a word, that you won't tolerate being ignored. You're creating a sense of mystery and intrigue. You're not begging for their attention. You're showing them that you're fully capable of thriving without it. And this isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's not about cutting people off completely or pretending you don't care. It's about taking a step back and showing them that you're not desperate for their response. You're just as content and confident standing in your own power as you would be if they replied. You're reminding them that your time, your energy, and your emotions are valuable, and they're not something to be taken for granted. This is where the real shift happens. When you stop begging for a response and start valuing your own time and energy, you stop becoming a passive participant in your relationships. You become an active one, taking charge of how you interact with the world. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about knowing your worth and being comfortable enough to stand in it. You're not going to chase someone who doesn't appreciate your efforts, and that's an incredibly powerful place to be. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually communicate this without seeming rude or dismissive? The answer is simple, with grace and clarity. If someone hasn't replied to you, don't immediately bombard them with multiple messages or follow-ups. Let your actions speak for you. If you feel like you've made your intentions clear and they're not responding, send a message that expresses your position clearly. Something like, I've made my feelings known, and if you're ready to connect, I'm here. This is a direct but not desperate approach. It communicates confidence, clarity, and an understanding that you won't continue to chase after someone who isn't putting in the effort. You've stated your case, and now it's their move. If they choose to respond, great. If not, it's their loss. And here's the beautiful part. When you adopt this mindset, you start to attract the kind of people who value you for who you are, not for how hard you chase them. The right people will appreciate your confidence and your boundaries. They'll understand that you have your own life, your own interests, and that you won't settle for anything less than mutual respect. But most importantly, you'll be in a position to start attracting relationships, whether personal or professional, that are built on the foundation of equality. You won't be running after people, begging for their attention. You'll be standing tall, attracting people who can meet you at your level and engage with you as a partner, not a passive observer. So, the next time you don't get a reply, don't fall into the trap of begging. Stand firm in your power. Respect your time, your emotions, and your worth. When you stop chasing and start valuing yourself, you'll realize that you don't need to beg for anyone's attention. And when you do that, the people who truly value you will be the ones who step up and meet you where you are. When it comes to communication, we often find ourselves caught in the cycle of wondering what went wrong or why we didn't get the response we expected. We pour our hearts out, send messages, and hope for the validation that our feelings are being received. But here's the truth we need to internalize. Communication is about clarity, not desperation. If you're finding yourself constantly waiting for a reply or chasing someone down for attention, it's time to stop and reassess. You're sending the wrong message. When you send a message, it should be clear and to the point, but it should also reflect your self-respect and boundaries. Too often, when we don't get a reply, we feel this intense urge to follow up with more messages, more pleading, more pressure. It feels natural in the moment, doesn't it? You want to make sure they know you're interested, that you're available, that you're there for them. But by doing that, you're undermining the very thing you want to achieve, respect. Think about it this way. When we chase after people, we unintentionally make ourselves seem smaller in their eyes. It's not a conscious decision, but it happens every time. We diminish our own worth by seeking constant approval or validation. What message are we sending when we do that? We're telling them that we don't have enough faith in our own value. We're begging for a response. And by doing so, we weaken our own position. The truth is, if someone is genuinely interested, they will reach out. They'll make an effort. If they don't, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their lack of interest. Instead of playing the game of constantly checking your phone, waiting for that ping, it's time to shift your approach. If you're in a situation where someone isn't responding, you don't need to bombard them with more attempts. You need to send a message that communicates not just your feelings, but your standards. And this doesn't mean sending a passive-aggressive message. It doesn't mean playing hard to get. It means standing tall and saying, I'm not desperate for your attention. I'm fine on my own. And if you're interested, I'd love to hear from you. One of the most powerful things you can do when someone doesn't reply is to let them know that you value your time and your emotions. Your message doesn't have to be long or filled with over-explanation. In fact, the shorter and more confident, the better. Something like, I've let you know how I feel. If you're interested, I'd love to hear from you. If not, I understand and I'll move on. Says everything you need to say without begging for a response. This approach sets the tone. It communicates that you're not just waiting around for someone to decide you're worthy of their time. You're already living your life. You're already moving forward. What makes this kind of message effective is that it comes from a place of clarity and confidence. You are being direct and transparent. You are no longer hiding behind passive behavior, hoping someone will suddenly realize your worth. You are showing them that you're someone who stands firm, not just for yourself, but for your own needs. This is the opposite of desperation. It's self-assurance. The truth is, when you don't get a reply, it can be painful. We all know that feeling of rejection. But here's where you need to reframe the situation. Not responding is actually a form of communication in itself. It's telling you something about the other person. Maybe they're not ready for what you're offering. Maybe they're just not as interested as you are. And that's okay. What's important is how you handle it. If you let the silence eat away at you, if you let it make you feel like you're somehow inadequate, you're only reinforcing that narrative. Instead, treat it as an opportunity to step into your own power. It's not about them, it's about you. In situations like this, your worth is not tied to their response. Your value doesn't go up or down based on someone's decision to reply or not. You are not less than, and you are not inferior because someone failed to acknowledge your message. If anything, you're giving them the chance to show their true colors. And that clarity helps you make decisions that are aligned with your best interests. Let's also acknowledge that sometimes people genuinely don't know how to communicate. Maybe they're not ready for the kind of connection you're offering. Maybe they're overwhelmed with their own lives, or maybe they just aren't as emotionally available as you are. Whatever the reason, it's essential that you stop internalizing their lack of response as a direct reflection of you. It's not. We can't control how others behave or what they choose to do, but we can control how we respond. And that's where your power lies. So the next time you're ignored, remember that it's not a time to panic. It's not a time to feel sorry for yourself or spiral into thoughts of self-doubt. Instead, it's an opportunity to send a clear message that you are in control of your own narrative. You don't need to beg for attention. You don't need to chase validation. You are enough as you are. And anyone who can't see that isn't someone who deserves your energy. It's time to embrace the power of letting go and moving forward. By sending a message that communicates your confidence, your clarity, and your self-respect, you're giving the other person the space to either step up or step out. And no matter what they choose, you're going to be just fine. Silence is an incredibly powerful tool. We often overlook it, mistakenly equating it with weakness or indifference. But the truth is, silence can be one of your most assertive forms of communication. When someone doesn't reply to your message, it can feel personal, like you've been dismissed or forgotten. It's natural to feel rejected. But here's the thing, being ignored doesn't have to be a reflection of your worth. And in fact, how you respond or don't respond can say more about you than any words ever could. When you're faced with someone who isn't replying, your instinct might be to send more messages, to chase after them, to try harder. But when you do that, you risk lowering your own value. It's like telling the other person, I'm available whenever you need me, and I'm willing to beg for your attention. People can feel that desperation, whether they realize it or not, and it doesn't make you look any more attractive or desirable. In fact, it makes you look as though you're undervaluing yourself. And that's a dangerous position to put yourself in. Instead, try this. Resist the urge to chase after them. Let silence speak for you. Imagine the scenario for a moment. You've sent a message, you've expressed yourself honestly, and now it's their turn to respond. If they don't, that's their choice. And here's where your power lies, in the space that you give them. The longer you stay silent, the more you give them the opportunity to think about you and what you've said. But silence isn't just about waiting passively. It's about holding your ground. It's about showing them that you don't need to fill the void with words or actions. Your silence is a statement in itself. You're not desperate and you're not waiting around. You're moving forward, regardless of their response. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean you're playing games. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding your own value and acting accordingly. You see, when you stop begging for someone's attention, You create a space where they have to confront their own actions. They have to ask themselves, why hasn't she reached out again? Why hasn't he come running after me? And in that moment, you've shifted the power dynamic. It's no longer about you desperately seeking their approval. It's about them wondering what it means when you don't immediately chase after them. This doesn't mean you're giving up or giving in, far from it. It means you're taking a step back to allow the other person to step up if they truly want to engage with you. When you keep chasing after someone who is indifferent or unavailable, you're showing them that you will accept anything. But when you stop, you're showing them that you're selective with your time and attention. You're showing them that if they want to be a part of your life, they'll have to make an effort. And let me tell you, that effort means something. It's not just about sending a text or calling you back. It's about showing up in ways that matter, being present, being reliable, being engaged. If they can't do that, you have to ask yourself, is this the type of person you want to invest your energy in? Because your time, your attention, your love, they're valuable, and they should be treated as such. Now, I know it's hard. I know the temptation is to fill the silence with something, anything, just to get a response. But here's the truth. When you fill that silence, you're essentially removing the space where they have to reflect on their actions. You're making it easier for them to keep ignoring you. They don't have to think about why they've stopped replying. They don't have to wonder if you're losing interest or moving on. They know that at the end of the day, you'll be there, always ready to pick up the pieces when they finally come around. What does that do to your relationship? It weakens it, because relationships are built on mutual respect and effort. If you're always the one putting in the effort, always the one reaching out, always the one giving and never receiving, you've created an imbalance. And that imbalance is not sustainable. Eventually, someone will take your efforts for granted because they haven't had to work for your attention. And that's where the danger lies. When someone doesn't value what they have, they won't appreciate it until it's gone. And that's where silence comes in. When you allow silence to do the work for you, you're not only protecting your own dignity, but you're also giving them the chance to appreciate what they have in front of them before it disappears. There's a powerful lesson in not responding. The lesson is this: you don't need to chase. You don't need to beg. You don't need to fill every silence with a word or an action. When you stop pursuing someone who isn't pursuing you, you create a space for something better. You create space for people who value you, for relationships that are balanced and reciprocal, for situations where your effort is matched and appreciated. And let's be real for a second. If someone truly cares about you, they won't make you wait around. They won't leave you wondering. They will show up. They will communicate. They will make it clear that you are a priority, not an afterthought. If they don't, then that's their loss. And when you realize that, truly realize it, you'll stop chasing after anyone who isn't willing to meet you halfway. You'll stop begging for attention and start demanding the respect and love you deserve. So next time you're faced with silence, take a moment to breathe. Don't rush to fill the gap. Let them wonder, let them miss you, and most importantly, let yourself grow in the quiet moments, knowing you don't have to beg for what's already yours. When it comes to relationships, we often find ourselves caught in the dance of giving, pursuing, and hoping for reciprocation. One of the most powerful things you can do when someone isn't responding the way you expect or deserve is to stand firm in your boundaries. It's easy to fall into the trap of wondering what went wrong or doubting your worth when someone doesn't reply. But here's the thing, when you let your boundaries slip, when you become too available or too desperate, you're telling the other person that your time and energy are not as valuable as they really are. And that's where it all starts to break down. Boundaries aren't just about saying no to what you don't want. They're about saying yes to what you deserve. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional investment are precious and they deserve to be treated with respect. And this starts with how you treat yourself first. The way you set and maintain boundaries shows the world how you want to be treated. And if you let people take advantage of your availability or take you for granted, you're not just letting them down. So when someone ignores you, doesn't reply, or seems to vanish, you have a choice. You can keep chasing after them, begging for their attention, trying to convince them of your worth, or you can make a different choice. You can stand firm in your boundaries and decide that you're worth more than someone's indifference. Despite the power here isn't in begging or pleading for attention, it's in stepping back and saying, if this person values me, they will show it. If they don't, I have enough respect for myself to walk away. Now, that doesn't mean you have to immediately sever ties or give up on the relationship entirely. What it does mean is that you stop over-investing emotionally in someone who hasn't proven that they value your time or your energy. You stop the cycle of chasing and hoping. Instead, you let your absence speak for itself. And here's the truth. Absence creates value. The moment you stop chasing, stop scrambling, and stop begging, you create space for someone to step forward and demonstrate whether they truly care. When you become the one who is no longer readily available, you force the other person to make a decision. Are they going to step up, or are they going to let you walk away? Standing firm in your boundaries doesn't just make you attractive to others, it's a way of reinforcing your own self-worth. It's an affirmation that you value yourself enough to protect your time and emotional energy. The longer you tolerate being ignored or undervalued, the more you weaken your own boundaries. You start to send a message, not only to the other person, but also to yourself, that their lack of response is acceptable, that their behavior doesn't warrant any change. But when you stand firm, you send a message to both yourself and them. I won't tolerate being treated this way. I am worth more, and I expect more. But standing firm is not about being cold, aloof, or playing mind games. It's about being clear on what you want and sticking to it. It's about knowing what you deserve and not settling for less. And when you communicate this through your actions, when you stop chasing, stop begging, stop trying to make someone respond to you, you are demonstrating the strength of your boundaries. It's not about being harsh or dismissive. It's about being confident enough in yourself to say, I don't need to chase after this. So what does it look like when you stand firm in your boundaries? It means you don't repeatedly text someone who hasn't replied. It means you don't keep calling or messaging hoping they'll come around. Instead, you let the silence speak for itself. If that person values you, they will reach out. If they don't, they will let you go. And you have to be okay with that. In fact, you have to embrace it. The more you chase, the more you diminish your own value. People chase things that are scarce. And when you're constantly available, you're no longer seen as scarce or valuable. You have to know that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's attention. And when you stop begging, you show them that you know that. It's a hard pill to swallow at first, especially if you're used to constantly reaching out or trying to make things work. But the truth is, the most attractive quality you can have in a relationship is not desperation, but confidence in who you are. When you stand firm in your boundaries, you're showing confidence not just in yourself, but in the relationship you're trying to build. You're showing that you won't settle for a one-sided connection. And that kind of confidence is magnetic. It attracts people who understand and respect your worth. Now, here's the thing about boundaries. They're not about being rigid or inflexible. They're about protecting yourself. When you stand firm in your boundaries, you're saying, I have a right to be treated with respect. And if you're not willing to offer that, then I won't keep putting myself in a position to be hurt. Boundaries allow you to protect your heart while still being open to meaningful connections. They ensure that you're never in a position where you're giving more than you're receiving, emotionally or otherwise. The beauty of setting boundaries is that they create space for the right people to show up. When you stop giving your energy to those who don't value it, you free yourself up for relationships where there's mutual respect, understanding, and effort. And that's the kind of connection we all deserve. Standing firm in your boundaries creates the emotional space for real, authentic love to grow. It ensures that you're not wasting your time on people who don't have the capacity to meet you where you are. and it means you're ready for those who can. So, the next time you find yourself wondering whether you should chase after someone who isn't replying, remember this. You are not desperate. You are not powerless. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. And your heart is valuable. Stand firm in your boundaries. Respect yourself enough to walk away and let the right people come to you. You deserve nothing less. When you're faced with the frustration of being ignored, it's easy to feel disheartened, like you're not important enough or like you've been rejected in some way. We've all been there, sending a message, hoping for a reply, and then seeing that read status, but getting no response. But here's the thing you need to understand. Not getting a reply isn't a reflection of your worth. It's not a measure of who you are as a person, nor should it ever make you feel like you need to chase someone to earn their attention. Instead of scrambling to get a response, there's a far more powerful and confident approach you can take. The key is to stop begging for attention, stop selling yourself short, and instead send a message that reflects your own strength, clarity, and self-assuredness. The first thing you need to remember is this: you're not desperate. When someone doesn't reply, it's a test of your ability to stand firm in your own worth. So many people fall into the trap of seeking validation through responses. But that's not what it's about. If someone truly values you, they will show it. And if they don't, then it's not your responsibility to make them. Begging for their attention, repeatedly sending messages, or trying to guilt trip them into responding just puts you in a position of weakness. It makes you appear like you're unsure of your own value, and that's the last thing you want. You don't need to chase anyone to prove that you're worth their time. Your worth is intrinsic. It doesn't come from someone else's actions or lack of actions. It doesn't matter if they take hours or days to reply, or if they don't reply at all. If they're not interested, that's on them, and that's something you should never forget. You are whole on your own. You don't need anyone's approval or attention to feel significant. Now, when we think about how to handle this situation, the first instinct for many is to send another message, maybe one that's a bit more persistent. Perhaps you try to justify why they should reply, or maybe you ask them if they've seen your previous message. But what's happening here is that you're giving away your power. You're putting yourself in a position where you feel like you have to beg for a response. And when you do that, you're signaling that you're willing to tolerate being ignored. That's not a position of power. Instead, you want to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the most powerful message I can send here? Not just for them, but for myself. What's the message that demonstrates my value without needing them to validate it? The answer isn't more begging or pleading. It's a message that reflects your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of self-worth. The message should be one that shows you're comfortable with your decision, regardless of whether they reply. Here's the truth. Sometimes not getting a reply is a blessing. It's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your strength and self-respect. When you send a message, you don't need to repeatedly chase after someone to know you've communicated what you feel. A simple, clear response can do more than you realize. For example, you might say something like, I've made my feelings clear. If you're ready to connect, I'm here. This statement doesn't come from a place of desperation. It comes from a place of confidence and understanding. You're acknowledging the situation with grace and making it clear that the ball is now in their court. Think about it. By sending a message like this, you're not begging. You're taking a stand for yourself. You're saying, I've been upfront, I've been honest, and I won't keep chasing you if you're not reciprocating. It's an empowering statement. You're owning the fact that you have expressed yourself, and now it's their turn to decide whether they want to engage with you or not. And the beauty of this is that it also frees you. By sending that message, you let go of the need for an immediate reply. You let go of the hope that they will come back and apologize or explain themselves. Instead, you're acknowledging that your worth is not contingent on whether or not they choose to respond. At the same time, it's important to understand that when you take this approach, you're not being cold or distant, you're being emotionally intelligent. You're acknowledging the reality that sometimes people won't respond as you hope, but you're not going to let that affect how you value yourself. You're still leaving the door open, but you're also setting a clear boundary. You're telling them that you won't be in limbo, waiting for someone who's not giving you the courtesy of a simple reply. The mistake many people make is that they assume that by waiting around, by continuing to message, they'll somehow make the other person realize how much they care or how much they've been missed. But the opposite happens. The more you chase, the less they value your attention. The less you respect your own time, the less they'll respect it. It's a subtle dynamic, but it's real. When you send a message that says, "I'm here when you're ready," you're sending a message that says, "I don't need to keep proving myself to you. I've done my part, and I expect the same in return." So stop chasing after people who don't